Welcome back to Home Turf Sports, where we discuss the local PD area high school sports coverage, football, baseball, basketball, and anything sports for the PD. Tonight we're going to discuss Week 1 high school football recap, beginning with our game of the week, which was Marlboro County and Sherrall. Anything you got opening statements on that game, Devin, before we get started to get into it real heavy?
Yeah, guys, I hope you're having a good Labor Day. We're back to talk about this Week 1 recap. We had a lot of huge games on deck around the PD area, and we had a little bit of college football getting us hooked back in this weekend. And we even got we got one game actually tonight. But I'll let you go ahead and get right into it with some scores, and we'll get right into it.
All right, everybody. First off, we're going to talk about our game of the week, which was Marlboro County and Sherrall. Marlboro County ended up pulling the game off 27-20, which the first half, I think Marlboro was up 20-3 at one point, and it looked like the game could possibly get out of hand, but give credit to Sherrall. They stood strong in the second half, held tight, and actually cut the score to 20-17 before Marlboro had another score in the fourth quarter to go back up 10, and I wouldn't say comfortable, but it was never in doubt after that. But Sherrall played great in the second half. I think they had a great game plan coming out in the second half, where they were just going to plan on stopping the run and make Marlboro do something different. Because total for the game, Devin, Marlboro only threw the ball 8 times. They were 4 for 8 for about, I think it was 75 yards or something like that. So their game plan was to come out and run the ball. I think their total rushing yards would end up being like 262 yards. So they established that they're going to be a running team and only pass when they want to and not just when they have to. So Marlboro's rushing offense, I think the first game they had 322 yards. Week 2 they had 262 yards. So in 2 games they're well over 600 yards rushing. That's a pretty positive sign for a team. If you can run the ball like that, you can win a lot of ball games.
Yeah, man, especially with Marlboro's offense and defensive front. Like they had 3 guys that really could just push on the offensive line, at least give you 3 or 4 yards every time you touched it. And one thing I did like about them, man, they don't get the running backs don't get so tired because they got 5 or 6 backs that they can put out there really on any given down. But they did have one of their key running backs that was out from last week's game. I believe it was a shoulder injury, if I remember correctly. But yeah, they held their own their first half. They got up big, which I thought it might could get out of hand. But in that second quarter, I seen them guys starting to get a little tired from running the ball so much. And Sherrall made some second half adjustments at halftime, and they just come out firing all cylinders. But I think at the end, like we talked about on the other show last week, the depth, man, it just showed, especially when you got one team dressing out 60 and you got the other team dressing out 30. Even though some of those guys, like on Sherrall's side, about probably 14 or 15 of those guys in years past, in these past few years, with the way the school numbers are, have to play both sides of the ball, especially at a 2A high school like that. And most of them that's athletic, they're going to have to play both sides of the ball. But they try to get those young guys in there just so they can have them for the region games towards the end of the season. But I like the contest they had. I like the way they did fight back and made it a game and actually had a chance there at the end to try to score. But Sherrall got into a little injury prong. He had a running back went out with an injury. A few guys on defense. Well, I think injuries played a both factor in both sides because I know early on Marlboro's quarterback was hurt a little bit, and they had a few guys on defense that was banged up. But what else you got in that game?
Yeah, I actually shared a couple of back and forth text messages with Coach Poole after the game. Just want to tell him it was a good game. They played hard and good luck going forward, and actually telling him how his quarterback, he was just a warrior all night, man. He took some big shots. Those guys were constantly in his face. He stood in there and made some good throws. I think Nick Gordon had 10 or 11 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown, and also returned the punt for a touchdown. So he had a really good night as well. But just the toughness of the quarterback, Caden Thomas, I'm not gonna say he played his best game, but he stood tough all night, man. That kid, like I said, he was a warrior. He took some shots, took some big hits, and especially when Marlboro knew that they had to throw the ball, because as we're gonna talk later on down the line about our offensive defense players of the week, but Marlboro's defense held Sherrod to negative 17 yards rushing. So you knew that they were going to have to throw the ball to even have a chance to move the ball. And like I said, Marlboro could just pin their ears back and rush. And that kid stood there and, like I said, took some shots and really made some great throws. So like I said, we haven't even got into Marlboro on the offense side. I think Trey Blakeney, he had a big night rush, and I can't remember the exact total yards on him, but he did have 3 touchdowns on the ground himself. He made it. He didn't throw it many times, but he did make a couple of big time passes when it was needed, especially on that last drive. He made a big time throw to Mekhi Littles over there for a big pickup that really set up that last touchdown to push the lead back to 10 for Marlboro, to let them give him a little sigh of relief, because Sherrod, like I said, they were putting pressure on him. It just felt like Marlboro couldn't do anything right in the second half, or really couldn't make any big plays. They were just grinding it out, trying to run clock. And like I said, give credit to Sherrod. They come out and executed the game plan in the second half and put pressure on Marlboro, and got right back into the game, and it made it what we thought this rivalry game would be. It was a really tight game, 27-20 in the end, and for the most part, that's how rivalry games supposed to come out. But like I said, Marlboro came out on top, but I think Sherrod really showed that they can be a contender moving forward.
Yeah, man, I think at the end of the day, they look back, they went to practice this morning, they probably had their pre-practice meeting, they look at it and say, hey guys, we just played one of the top 3A teams in the state that can play any week in and out. I think from what I heard from Coach Poole, he said he thinks they're going to win the conference, win the region, and have home field advantage, and he thinks they can go deep in the playoffs. But if they play the way they did in the second half of the night, I like those there in that conference. But speaking of Marlboro on the offensive side, man, they was having problems with Trey Blakeney, his height, man. He really can get right under center. The edge guys saying they couldn't even see him back there. He was just hiding up under center. And with them getting that push and all of the misdirection they were getting, they said they didn't see him. They didn't know which way the ball was going.
Yeah, me and as I do the radio broadcast for Marlboro, me and Chandler Herndon, we actually talked about this in the first scrimmage that we watched them play. That they're in the wing tee, but Trey Blakeney, he adds another element to it where he squats down so low, like you said, he gets lost back there. And if you move your eyes the wrong way just for 1 minute, he's already gone by you, because he's a great athlete, man. And even when plays break down, he can still make something happen. He did that 2 or 3 times versus Sherrod, where you thought there wasn't anything there, and then next thing you know, it's a 15, 20-yard gain. So, yeah, that is tough on defenses, man. They can't really get a read on what's going on, because not only is he elusive and fast, and you can't even hardly see him back there sometimes. So, yeah, that is a big key for them. But I like the way they mix it up. They'll come out and run the wing tee several plays in a row, and think you bring in a bunch of defensive linemen and linebackers in to try to stop the run. Next thing you know, they come out then 3 or 4 wide spread, and then you got the wrong defense on the field. So I think that's kind of the game plan. Try to mix it up where you can't really get comfortable with what you're doing. But I think in the second half, Terrell just made their mind up that, hey, we're just gonna have to sell out and stop and run. If he throws it and beats us, then he just does. But we're going to try to make them one-dimensional. And Marlboro, credit them, though. They never really got away from their game plan. Their game plan was to run the ball. And even though Sherrod was stopping them a lot, they never got away from that and just stuck with it. And, finally at the end, they did hit a couple big plays that allowed them to get downfield and score that last touchdown. So I want to give credit to both coaching staffs, man. They both come into the game with a very good game plan. Both teams pretty much executed, Devin. They did what they needed to do, and you can see in the final score of 27-20. That was a really good game, and it's really, truly the big key was the one mistake Terrell made first of the game. That's probably the difference in the game, snapping it over the punter's head and turning it over to Marlboro on like their 2 or 3 yard line. And even though that was early in the game, that was probably one of the biggest plays in the game that could have cost them the ball game.
Yeah, man, especially in a rivalry game like that. You do stuff like that. You make minor errors with that error actually turned into a big mistake. because you gave Marlboro their first possession on the, what was it, 2 yard line, I believe, and man, 2 yards, and when you get 4 downs, you know you're going for it. I mean, if you get down to the 4th down, and that's hard to really put your defense out there at the 2 yard line on the Marlboro County open possession. But I like the way they fought back on the offensive side of Straw. Quarterback took some big hits, and I'm glad he was able to stay in there and take it, because speaking of Marlboro's defense, man, they got some guys that look like Michael Parsons and Abdul Carter right there on his edges. I don't know what they feed these boys over here, but I mean, geez, I was sitting up there taking it all in. I was like, good Lord, man, this defense got a chance, especially with what they got up front. And they running that 3-man front. They can just push the offensive line back towards the quarterback anytime they wanted. They could rush when they wanted, stunts, anything they really wanted to do. But speaking of Sherrall's one wide receiver, Nick Gordon, man, I think he had a good game receiving ball. You said he had 10 catches for over about 100 yards, about 10. But I think the momentum change was when they kicked that punt to him, and it was an 85-yard punt return touchdown. I think that got them really. The guys got together and said, "Hey guys, we can do something here, a little momentum." But I think it was a good game plan by both coaches. They stuck to what they wanted to do. At the end, I think the fans got what they wanted. It was a good ride for both teams. Community got out. It was sold out crowd for both sides, both bands. Everybody traveled well. I feel like it was a playoff atmosphere vibes from what I was getting, especially in that second half when everybody was starting to get ready to go. But you know, like I said, man, at the end, towards the end, the depth played out. You can see who was a little bit more tired than who, and who's got more at the end. But that's really my takeaways from that game. I think both teams can have really a big year, and I think they can go really where they want to, especially from what I seen the other night.
Yeah, a few last thoughts on me. That's what I was going to ask you. I was up in the booth, but I was going to ask you how did the atmosphere feel from down in the stands or down on the sideline? But it looked like it was a great atmosphere. You know, and when something big's happening, you can hear the crowd kind of getting ready to erupt. You know, I had that feeling in the press box, and I just know it was a great atmosphere out on the field. And I know that both coaching staffs and all the players, man, they were just excited for that one. You could see it on both sides. You could tell it was a rivalry. You seen a couple of chatter back and forth between guys, but it never really got out of hand. It was just, you know, all in good humor or good banter between both teams. But you know, you're gonna have that in rivalry games. We did maybe get a couple offset and unsportsmanlike, but you can expect that in a game like that. And I'm glad the referees, you know, made those offsetting penalties and not hurt one team like that, man. But you know, because you're gonna have that back and forth chatter. You know, anytime you get tackled on the other team's sideline, it's gonna be a bunch of trash talk. You know, you just gotta compose yourself. But you know, ending on that, it was just like I said, it was a really well played game, man. And Caden Thomas, like I said, I'm glad he hung in there tough, because I think he did come out for a play or two where they put Nick Gordon back there and just kind of run the Wildcat. And I'm glad it wasn't anything major. I don't know that it wasn't more that, hey, I just need to catch my breath for a few minutes. You know, I've been running around back there crazy. So I think that was a good move by Coach Poole to get him out, let him get some water, just catch his breath and get his feet back up under him. But that kid's going to be tough. You know, I think that both teams will be better for playing that game against each other going forward, because, you know, both of these teams got the potential to go deep in the playoffs.
I like how well the game was played. Yeah, speaking of those penalties, man, I'm glad whenever, you know, more 9 times out of 10 when they throw those in sportsmanlike conduct, because most of the time it's both ways. So I was glad to see a bunch of them just sportsmanlike and they all said each other, because you only penalize one team. But I did see some plays get extended out of bounds, but hey, both teams was probably throwing chips out, so maybe we didn't see, maybe on the field, on the playing surface. But we'll get out of that game. We want to give good luck to both teams the rest of the way, and hope they can do what they can in the playoffs, and we'll get on to the next one.
Yeah, the next game we had on the agenda, Devin, was South Florence and Summerville. That game was played down in Summerville. I think you picked South Florence. I took Summerville, and because I know it's going to be tough to win down there, man. That's always a tough stadium to play in. And South Florence come out with a big win, 22-21. I know you did a little research on that game. Tell us what you got on that one, Dylan.
Yeah, man, well, from what I've seen, the highlights of that game, South Florence made the trip down there, and those guys they said when the kicker missed one early on and the coach wasn't having it, his gut feeling was to go for 2 for the win with a 2-point conversion with no time on the clock. So they went for it, quarterback keeper up the middle, and next thing you know, you come back down 95 with a win. Hey, even if you win them by 1 or by 100 on the road against a big 5A team that was in state championship game last year, you'll take a win anytime you can get one like that.
Yeah, man, like you said, a win is a win, and that win really impressed me from South Florence. I knew they were a really good team, but anytime you go on the road like that far away, 2 or 3 hour drive, and your fans with a team like South Florence, your fans are gonna travel well. But Summerville's a different beast. You just don't walk up in Summerville Stadium and walk out with a win, man. Some of the players they had come through there before. That's a tough place to play, and South Florence, they really got my attention after that game, man. 22-21, that's a gutsy call by the coach. But at the end of the day, like I said, win or lose, I think that he makes that call. That's not going to have any kind of effect on his region play or anything like that. But that is a call that if you do get it, it can prepare your team going forward, because that's a big confidence booster for a team like South Florence saying, hey, we just wasn't all Lenore Sellers or we wasn't all Jaden Sellers. We got other kids here who can play too. So that's a big win for those guys. And if you ain't got anything else on that game, Devin, we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, really not too much on that. But I feel like that game, both defenses probably had was on the field probably a numerous times on the game, but it seemed like it was a good game. I know it's probably a good atmosphere down there in Summerville. They got the light show and everything like that, but I feel like at the end that game was really one of the trenches from what I believe in. But yeah, that's really the only thing I got on. We'll get into South Florence more later on the next show on Thursday, because if you South Florence fans are tuning in, we got a lot to talk about them coming up Thursday. But I'll let you get into the next one.
The next game on the schedule was Darlington and North Myrtle Beach. This is another one that you called that I missed. Darlington pulled out a big win, 14-7 over North Myrtle. I guess I kind of need to step back and give Darlington a little more credit. Not being given them, this ain't the same old Darlington team of years past. They're 2-0 now, is that right, Devin?
Oh yeah, 2-0.
Darlington 2-0. They made a statement going to North Myrtle and winning. That's a big time win on the road for Darlington there. I don't know what North Myrtle's got. Marlboro does play North Myrtle, so I'll see them in a couple of weeks. But Darlington might be opening some eyes, man, and grabbing everybody's attention. So we'll have to keep an eye on those guys going forward.
Man, Darlington, they got a new coach in last year, and they had that 3 or 4 years where they didn't win a game. So I guess they got some younger athletes stepped up to the plate, and they was tired of hearing everybody say Darlington ain't this, they ain't this. And they always had good athletes growing up for me and your time, but I think it's about time to put some respect on Darlington. They have good athletes. They're led by that senior quarterback. But they say he's a one-man wrecking crew, man. He can do it all. He's Mr. Do It All down there. But I like Darlington. I like Darlington that game. I feel like Darlington probably out-athleted them, because Darlington has all kind of athletes that can do really anything you want them to do. But I like their quarterback, man. I like Darlington.
All right. Well, next game on the schedule was Sockasty at Dillon. It was a long night for the Sockasty Braves.
I'm glad it wasn't the Sherrod Braves.
I think this game was 41-0 at the half. That ended up being the final, but I think at the half, that's what it was, 41-0, man. And this game was statement made by Dillon. They thought they kind of let that one slip away last week against Scotland, and they just, from what I'm being told, that the coaches said, look, we're gonna make a statement early, and I hate it for Soxy. They walked into a bee's nest Friday night, and the Wildcats wasn't having none of it.
Soxy, man, I don't know if they ever been to the White Walls, man. It'll get crazy out there Friday night at 7:30.
Yeah, man, it's crazy so much that I seen the post on Facebook from the news station saying that they wasn't going to allow nobody to stand up on the fence no more. They must have got a little It got a little wild down there Friday night. Everybody's got to be in the bleachers unless you're on the way to the concession stand. So
or on the way home.
Yeah, on the way home. Yes, Dylan, they come out and made a statement early, man, and we'll have a little bit more on this game next week. Later on in the show as well when we get to our players of the week.
Yeah, I think Kevin Rowland, he probably had a hot week. And them boys probably had a good week of practice after coming back off that L from Scotland County. I'm like with you, they made a statement here, and I look for them to get ready and stay hot in this non-region play and get ready for the region play because they do got some key playmakers on the team. They can get it done on both sides of the ball. And really, in that conference, I only see maybe Dylan maybe losing one more, maybe 2 games in the regular season.
Yeah, Dylan, like I said, if you got to play Dylan here coming up next couple of weeks, you got bad news coming. It's kind of like if maybe you sitting in court and you got to come up next for a speeding ticket and the guy in front of you done pissed the judge off, arguing back and forth with him, and you like, man, I got to go up there now if he's done pissed off. That's kind of probably how Soxley felt going into Dylan this week.
Yeah, I mean, I know you said they had a bad weather late down there, so that's probably the only way them jerseys got dirty for Soxley in that rain because that score it sure prevailed. I tell you that.
Yeah, man, there ain't a whole lot more to talk about this game. Like I said, I think the starters were out by the half for Dylan from what I'm seeing. So they made a statement early, got the guys out, got some young guys some play time, and that's what the coaches want to do, get the young guys some experience because sooner or later down the road you probably gonna need those guys. Moving on to the next one was Wilson at Gilbert. Oh man, we been kind of high on Wilson here in the first couple of weeks, and like I said, they went down to Gilbert and played their hearts out and lost a heartbreaker 29-28. What can you tell me about that game, Devin?
Yeah, I didn't see too much on that game. Just hear through the grapevine that Wilson like you said, they played their hearts out. A hard fought battle to the end, but just couldn't pull it out. But I mean, Wilson, they had the past few seasons they've been coming on losing seasons, but I think they got that new coach. They 1-1. They're looking at trying to get back into the old Wilson winning ways back when they had Xavier Thomas, that is now playing for the Cardinals and played at Clemson. But I think Wilson's got a big one on their table. Wilson got a big one on the table coming up this Friday night because hey, they'll be back down there in Dillon. And I don't think Mr. Rowland's gonna he gonna have a good game plan ready for that one. But yeah, like I don't know what Gilbert's got. We don't really cover Gilbert because they're in the Midlands area. But I know Gilbert's got good tradition in all sports, and it's always hard to go on the road and beat somebody. You always have to play 100% and even really a little bit more. You have to have some luck sometimes. But hopefully Wilson will be back ready to try to go upset the Wildcats this Friday night in Dillon.
Yeah. I think Wilson will put up a little better showing than what Soxley did. But it's like I said, it's going to be tough to go down there to Dillon and win. That's a tough place to play, and we'll probably can tell more a little about what Wilson's got after this coming Friday. Next game on the agenda was Myrtle Beach at West Florence. Looks like this was another really good game, Devin. Myrtle Beach pulled it out 42-38, and West Florence coming off that loss to South Florence. They played with a little more heart, a little more fire in them this week, but they couldn't quite get the win. And Myrtle Beach, they're always, perennial favorite or perennial powerhouse in 3A. West Florence has been pretty good the past few years. That looked like it could have been a pretty exciting game to go to as well.
Yeah, I think you catch me on the picks now. I think we might be even 2-2, or if we even them out, because I think I took West Florence in that game. The home team and Chad Wilkes for them to rebound from last week's punch in the face when they showed up to the yard against South Florence. But I'm glad West Florence is showing some fight. They got good leadership in the coach, and I know that he's got some good coaches on the staff and get those guys back ready because I believe West goes on the road to Marion this week if I'm 100%. And I know Marion's down because the past few years Marion's been good in 2A and has had a lot of talent and athletes go play at the next level. But I hope West Florence can get back in their winning ways, man, because they are a good team, and that I know they moved up to the 5A conference with some hard teams in their conference. So I hope they can get some wins under their belt before they head into that brutal 5A schedule in a few weeks.
Yeah, West Florence, they got a chance to win a few games coming up, man. Maybe that can get them build some confidence going into region play. But the next game was the surprise of the week for me. Hartsville going down to Carolina Florence and pretty much, getting manhandled. 55-33 was the final of that game. It was a big surprise for me. I thought Hartsville would pull that game out. I thought it would be a pretty good game, but I didn't expect it to be either team getting beat by 20.
Yeah, I don't really know what Carolina Forest has, but I know they got some offense. I feel like their coach says, "Hey, we'll just practice offense. We'll let somebody's defense sit and come here and stop us." I mean, hey, if you Carolina Forest and you can put up 55 points a game, I mean, most high school games like that, I feel like you should be able to win any game like that if you can score 55. Especially in an offense like that and what they got. I know those guys, they got tradition down there. They're well coached. They got good culture. They got good athletes all around the field. But I took Hartsville in that game, man. I was hoping Hartsville to go down there and upset those guys because, I mean, Hartsville's always had good athletes and well coached kids. But I like Hartsville in that game. But your picks always don't go right, and somebody's got to be wrong. But Hartsville will be back to work, I guess, this morning on Labor Day Monday for practice and get ready for their next game this Friday night.
Yeah, Carolina Forest they're usually a pretty tough team. They're 5A, so they got plenty of kids out, plenty of talent, and they're they're proving to be. I think they're gonna be a tough team going forward, man. In that 5A division. So if you can, like you said, if you can put up 50 a game, you got a good shot to win most of them.
Yeah, I like Carolina Forest. I mean, I know they're in that 5A, which 5A in that beach region. All those teams are about equal at the end of the day, but they prevailed. I mean, Hartsville got to get back to work and practice on what they did wrong, and maybe they can take some. They got some keys they can take away from that game and get better. But that's about the only things I really had on this game.
With the next two games we got coming up pretty local to us, Chesterfield went to Great Falls and won the game 28-14. I know you picked Chesterfield. I think I was picking a little bit of my heart. I wanted to see Coach Savelle get his first win down at Great Falls this year. They couldn't quite do it, but just seeing some posts from him on Facebook and stuff, he thinks his team is moving in the right direction. They just haven't got that win yet, but he's proud of his team. He thinks they're taking a step because I think it was maybe just last year, year before, they didn't even have a team. I thought either they canceled their team a couple games into the season.
Yeah, they couldn't even. They said they didn't have enough equipment or had the equipment to equip the guys they have on their team, man. But I'm looking here at the box score. Chesterfield's offense was pretty good early on, but kind of got flat about midway through the third. And actually, Great Falls scored 2 times towards the end and actually held those guys. So to 28 points going into the third quarter, which Great Falls got to have a little defense unless the Chester had got their 1s and 2s out and put the 3s in. But hey, when you can get those guys and you get a little bit of confidence, you get a few stops, man. And Great Falls 118, that might help them further along the way by playing these 2A and 3A schools. But yeah, man, I like Chesterfield in this one. I think that's Coach Nick Dixon, first year coach of the Rams, his alma mater. He gets his first win for the Golden Rams. So maybe this will get him a little confidence going into this Friday night's matchup. And good luck from those guys the rest of the season. We continue to cover them the rest of the season.
Our last, well, not last, we got one more after this, but our last South Carolina game was McBee at North Central. North Central handled that game pretty easily, 48-21. I really don't know a whole lot about North Central, Devin. You probably can get a little more. I got a couple friends over at McBee, and I was pulling for those guys. Man, I want to see them do good, especially after the tragedy hit last week. Everybody's walking around with a heavy heart. So I look for McBee to play inspired ball, but sometimes you're just outmatched, and it looks like that's what the case was this week.
Yeah, I feel like McBee was matched. This on athletes. And this one, McBee's young. I tuned in the other night and listened to that one against Rollin. McBee has got a lot of young guys playing up on the varsity, trying to get experience. But hey, that's not always a bad thing, because maybe in a few years from now, those same guys will be putting it to somebody else and saying, hey, we was those guys that y'all was beating up on, putting 50 points up on a few years ago. But yeah, I like North Central this one. North Central's got a few athletes down there. I look for North Central to probably have maybe be 500 this year. They ain't gonna jump out and surprise nobody. They got some good coaches down there that knows the game and knows what's going on. But yeah, I really like North Central in this one over McBee. Just overall, just because the athletes wise, but it's hard to really lose somebody when you put up 50.
That's correct. We'll move into our last high school game of the week recap, and that will be Scotland County going on the road to Richmond County. And pretty much Richmond, they won the game 36-21. I thought Scotland would probably be a little over their head this week. I knew Richmond, from what I was hearing, had a really good team coming back. They felt really good about this team, and they had a tough loss last week to Hoggard, where the coach said he thought he could have made a couple decisions better. That probably cost them that game. And Scotland was riding high after coming off that big come from behind win against Dillon. And I kind of thought they were go into the game maybe playing a little over their head. And it looks like it was probably a back and forth game early, but Richmond, got out to a couple score lead in the second half and never looked back.
Yeah, man, box score showing here. Richmond went for 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. And really just held Scotland hardly no yards most of the game. But yeah, I think I took Scotland this one. That was really a shocking to me, especially when you get a team that can usually beat Dillon, because Dillon's usually got this well coached and a bunch of athletes that can get it done. And those guys, man, that was really a shock for me. But hey, I got to think in the back of my mind, do I want to go against Richmond? I mean, 36 points in a rival like that. I mean, they got it done for the Raiders on Friday night. And they probably gave them confidence moving into next week. I think Richmond's back on the road, or I could be right or wrong. Always wrong. Ain't no wrong being wrong sometimes. But yeah, that's really all I got about that game.
Well, wrapping it up on the high school side, guys, we will get into our offensive and defensive players of the week, and we do have an honorable mention. But our offensive player of the week, me and Devin pretty much is in a agreement on this, is the Dillon's quarterback. I know I'm going to butcher his name, but I'm going to try. It's going to be Kel Samphone Talea. He only played 2 quarters, guys. This is his stats for 2 quarters. 16 for 21, 328 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's 2 quarters worth of work, guys. I mean, that's, some high school kids don't throw for 328 and 3 touchdowns in 2 or 3 weeks in high school league. He did it in 2 quarters, so that's really impressive, Devin. This kid's just a freshman.
Yeah, that kid is a freshman. That's a really an insane stat that I've seen. I just had to share it, and I think I was thinking before I even sent it to you that, hey, I think this is going to be our offense award for the week, because you can't really go against that. Coach got him out at halftime and said, hey, man, you just go ahead and hit the showers, man. There ain't nothing else for you to prove tonight. You going for over 3 bills, and you ain't 16 completed passes. But hey, they must got some guys on that outside, because them boys had to be running, son.
Well, they got North Carolina commit. I know he had a couple of touchdowns. I come across his stats as well, and he was in the running for player of the week. Marlboro's quarterback had 3 touchdowns himself. He was in the running, but for those guys, pretty much, I don't know about Dillon receiver, but I know Marlboro's quarterback played the whole game, and this kid here did this in 2 quarters. There was really no doubt in my mind that he was going to be the player of the week on offense. And moving over to the defense, we really couldn't decide on one player, but we wanted to go with the Marlboro County defense as a whole. anytime you hold a team to negative 17 yards rushing, I think that's a statement made, going forward. And Marlboro County's defensive front did a lot of that damage, but when those guys are getting the pressure that they do, it gives the linebackers room to run and keeps the offensive lineman off of them and lets them make a whole lot of tackles as well. But I think me and you were joking around, and I told you to ask Poole what some guy's name was, and he said ask KT. I'm sure he knows because that guy was in the backfield all night long. But you look up, you see 10, 11, 52, 20 for Marlboro. These guys are just all over the field making plays, man. But that defense is stout. And like I said, anytime you hold a team to negative 17 yards rushing, your team's gonna have a chance to win.
Yeah, going back to that Marlboro County game, just to fill in on a little bit. Yeah, I like those defensive guys. Like I said, they was only sending 3 most plays and just dropping everybody back because their coach, their defense coordinator must feel confident that those 3, he can get a lot of push from those 3 guys and he can just drop everybody back and they can just have a perimeter on the outside. But going into that, if you can cut that clip I sent to you or the wide receivers coach after the game, if you don't mind there for me.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get it pulled up. But like I said, they do feel confident they can get pressure with their front 3. And that gives those back guys, man, especially with a passing team like Sherrod, they can kind of just lay back and play their zone and everybody run to the ball.
Yeah, while he's looking for that clip, we'll go. I think we had a mutual on the honorable mention. Give it to Sherrod's wide receiver, Nick Gordon. I think like we said earlier, he went for 9 or 10 catches, over 100 yards. He had 75-yard punt return?
Yeah, 65 or 75 punt return, and he also had another receiving touchdown. So, he was in the running for Offensive Player of the Week as well. But, like I said, anytime you have a kid over 300 in 2 quarters. But Nick Gordon's impressive. He's going to win his fair share of Offensive Player of the Weeks this year. I would only imagine he's that kid, especially, playing teams. Every team ain't going to have a style of defense as Marlboro County. It don't matter who you play, 4A, 5A, 2A, it don't matter. That Marlboro County's got a great defense. And Nick Gordon, he pretty much did what he wanted to, even though, as good as that defense was.
Yeah, like you said, man, I don't know if Sherrod is even going to run into another defense like the Marlboro County defense they had the other night. Maybe River Bluff, they go to for a big non-region matchup before they start conference play. But I know what I seen from last year, none of the region teams that play has no many big fast guys on the line like that can get it done. But yeah, I look for those guys to be get it done the rest of the year and not really have that much problems. But I'm glad those guys have actually seen adversity and could see what maybe the upper state teams they had to play in the playoffs, and if they could get there, what they're gonna have to play in round 3 or 4.
Yeah, we'll get into that clip where you caught up with Marlboro County's wide receiver coach after the game. He had a lot of good stuff to say in this interview. So we'll get into that and let you guys listen to it.
Guys, back here on home turf with the winning team's wide receivers coach, Mr. DB David Brown. What do you think about tonight's game, brother?
Yes, sir, man. We just came out here, did what we had to do. We wasn't gonna get out our frame. We was gonna just come out here and play our ball and just expect to get a win. But we got adversity today, but we tried to get it done.
Man, going into that second half, I know you had guys have to make a lot of adjustments. Now come out flat in the second half, and Sherrod looked like they were battling back. I think at the end, the depth chart prevailed at the end.
Yeah. So we got a little banged up, started getting cramps and got a little injuries at bottom position. Our quarterback caught a cramp, but then I started running back, hurt his ankle. So once we get those guys back, I think we'll be just fine.
Well, guys, going into week 3 against Great Collegian, how you feel about next week's game?
Yeah, that's a huge game. That's a big task on our hands. We got to get that so that can help us for our seeding in the playoffs. Because we never know, we may see them later down the road. But that's a good coach team, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna try to come down here for the dog pound and try to come up with a win. But it's hard to win in dog pound.
Well, that's here you got, guys. Marlboro County 27, Sherrod 20. Good luck on the rest of the season, coach, and we appreciate everything you do.
All right, that's Marlboro County wide receiver coach, Coach Brown. Like you said, and I mentioned this earlier. I hadn't even heard that clip yet, but he said that they were pretty much going to come in and they made the deal. They were going to stick to their game plan, which was to run the ball. He didn't say it, but it's to run the ball anytime you run for 260 yards. That's your game plan. I mean, they were going to stick to their game plan. They threw the ball 8 times. Quarterback was 4 for 8. And I think about 6 of those pass attempts were in the first half. I mean, we only threw the ball, or Marlboro only threw the ball 2 times in the second half.
Yeah.
And Terrell knew that they were going to have to stop the run to have a chance. And, they made some adjustments and pretty much they stopped it for the most part. Marlboro did hit them with a couple of big plays, going into the fourth quarter that kind of that got that rushing number on up there a little bit. But I think Marlboro had over 150 yards rushing in the first half. So, Terrell hit them down pretty good after that, but they hit a couple big plays on them. But you got to be kind of stubborn sometimes as a coach, and just because adversity hits, you still sometimes stick to your game plan because there's a reason you came up with that game plan.
Yeah, they had to see something on film and they really like and what they think they can do, and they think they got it done in the run game, which was big for them in that first half. But I feel like Sherrod might have changed their game plan a little bit in the second half and said, "Hey, we'll sell out for the run, and if they pass and they go over top, they just have to beat us over top." Crawford Poole had a big game in that second half, and really most of the whole game. He was in the backfield a lot in the second half, and I've seen him hit another level of what he from last year and his off season during summer camp and fall camp, which I like some of the young guys they got on that defense, and I think from that offense that they seen the other night, especially with that offense, that made them better for their conference.
Well, talking about Crawford Poole and Anthony Strong, those guys can come off that edge, and I think that's the reason Marlboro had the game plan to run the ball, because if you were going to just drop back and pass, the way Crawford and Ant can get pressure on your quarterback, it's going to be a tough night with those 2 guys coming off the edge. But if you look at it, maybe Crawford is a little lighter, and you want to run the ball right at somebody like that, kind of like maybe a Dylan Stewart or somebody like that. If you could put them in a pass rush situation, they're going to beat you most of the night. But you guys like that are so quick off the ball, you kind of want to run the ball at them, and a lot of times that's how you beat guys like that. So I think that may be a reason why they come out and want to establish the run, because they felt like if they got in pass rush situations, things would happen like you saw. Crawford, like I said, Crawford Poole was in the backfield all night long, and that's a testament to him. That kid's a good ball player. But it's going to be tough to line up man for man with Marlboro's big offensive line and really stop them from running the ball. You just wanted to hold them to give yourself a chance, and Terrell did that very well in the second half. And like I said, I look for Coach Poole and those guys, to make a deep run in the playoffs again this year. Very proud of them. Like Coach Poole. Like I said, me and him exchanged a couple of text messages after the game, just some condolences and congratulations. Telling me he had a good team over there. But that's a team I'll keep up with moving forward. And that's about all we got on the high school side of things. Devin, if you ain't got anything, we'll move on over into the a little bit of the college stuff.
Yeah, speaking of one last thing, that rivalry, man, if you go back and look at both rosters for that team, both of those teams are actually underclassmen heavy and just junior heavy. So I'm ready to cover that game. I know it's far from now, but next year it'll be in Bentonville. From what I'm hearing, it's switched back. But I feel like that'd be another great game that we'll better cover, because me and you know most of those guys on both teams and know a bunch of the coaches, and I had fun this week covering that game and getting to interview the coaches and getting to see some good football. But we want to see both teams, obviously go undefeated. Local teams and win everything they can and win out. But that's really I got all from that, and we'll move on to what else we got for the rest of the show.
We'll move on in. We'll cover our 2 local college teams. First off was a showdown Saturday night with LSU and Clemson, which was built up to be a great game and really turned out to be a really good game. You and I watched that game together. It was really a defensive battle. Both teams got really stout defenses, probably top 10 defenses in the country. LSU, I think Clemson jumped out maybe 10-0 or up 10-3 in the first half. I really thought Clemson might pull this one out, because they were at home and it was, they looked like LSU just couldn't quite get it together. They threw that what they thought was a touchdown late to put them up pretty good, and ended up the guy just bobbled it a little bit going out of bounds and it was incomplete, and they ended up having to settle for a field goal. But that was a really good game. We joke and pick and play about not liking Clemson, but as a Gamecock fan, you really ain't gonna pull for them. But when you see the really good players and all the talent across the field, you always got to respect those guys. And like I said, we pick and play. I got a lot of Clemson friends, but those guys got a really good team, man. They're gonna be hard to beat in the ACC, and you probably look for them to go ahead and jot them down as in the ACC championship game at this point, the way they look. But LSU hung tough, stuck with their game plan as well. And LSU's got their fair share of talent as well. So I might play them in a few weeks. That's going to be a tough matchup. But Saturday night, they just made one more play than Clemson did. But, got to give credit to both of those teams and both of those coaching staffs. That was a very well defensive play game, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really like Clemson like that, but hey, we cover them because they're local. But yeah, I just had that gut feeling. That's why I took LSU. Because I think coming in this game, I think LSU was 0-2 or 0-3 with Brian Kelly going into openers. So I knew that if, like that, they talking about the Heisman with Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik, I knew if Garrett Nussmeier wanted the edge over Cade, that he was going to have to go in there and beat them in their house. And we both been to games at Clemson at that Death Valley, as they call it, or LSU might say there's a Death Valley. But it's really hard to go in there and win, man, especially up there in that crowd, in that stadium. I've been there. I've actually seen Carolina pull it out and break Clemson's home winning streak there a few years back. But yeah, Clemson, I mean, they do got a good defense. LSU got a good defense returning. I think LSU returned 18 out of the 24 starters that they got that play on the defense side of the ball, with subbing out and everything. But LSU just prevailed a little bit more. And speaking of defense, LSU, Harold Perkins, he really put pressure on Cade Klubnik all night long. But with a guy like Harold Perkins, they changed him this year from edge rusher back to linebacker. So really he can just read and just really make plays on his own. And really, they really just give him the whatever he can. If he can do it, he gets it done. If he can't, he drops back and protects. But I seen some stuff in that game from LSU's offense too. Running back looked phenomenal, especially in that second half. They come out and Clemson really they made no adjustments early on, but Garrett Nussmeier he reacted and he took what they gave him, and at the end of the day, LSU got it done with some talented guys on the wide receiver, especially that wide receiver they got from Kentucky and Barry Brown, which he had a decent pretty game too, but I like what I seen from Garrett Nussmeier, but no disrespect to Clemson. They do got a good team. They just need to change up their rushing game and maybe get a different guy or two back there that can get them the yards, because it don't matter what really conference you play. I think Clemson had 26 rushing yards or 27 rushing yards at the end of the game, and I think Cade might have had 16 of the 26. And really, you can't really win those games like that. It don't really matter who you play. Middle school, high school, college, NFL. You ain't gonna win a game with 26 rushing yards.
Yeah, it's really eye opening for me as a team, as the tradition and the recent winning at Clemson to not have anything any better at running back, to where they had to move one of their senior receivers to running back. And Adam Randall, he's a great kid. Played him in high school, watched him play at Myrtle Beach against Marlboro. He's a great player, great talent. But if you don't never play running back your first 3 or 4 years of college, and all of a sudden now you move back there and expect to be the starter, that's going to be a tough transition for anybody, any team. So that kid, he did make a couple of decent runs, and you can't hold it against him. He's doing what he thinks he does best for his team to win. But it's just hard for me to believe that Clemson doesn't have anybody else on the roster that they've recruited. They usually stack with 4 or 5 star running backs. It's mind-boggling for me to see Clemson having to move a receiver back to start at running back, unless they may have some injuries I'm just missing, because I don't really pay a lot of attention to Clemson or cover them a great deal. But just very shocking to me that they don't have a 4 or 5 star guy back there waiting in the wings to take over. and maybe they do. He's just young and ain't ready yet. But we'll see them moving forward. I think, like I said, they won't play many more defenses as good as LSU for a few weeks. So maybe they can make some things happen and get those young guys' feet wet and make some changes on offense and get the running backs more involved. But we'll move on into Sunday's contest. Devin, the game that me and you were most excited for was South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Where'd you come out? South Carolina come out on the first drive, bang, 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 7-0. Everybody, as a Gamecock fan, we're thinking it's going to be a blowout. And then Virginia Tech's, not so fast, and they hold South Carolina to like 3 points the rest of the first half. It's ended up being like 10 to 8 or something at halftime because Virginia Tech got a safety and a couple field goals, and it's like 10 to 8. And we're like, here we go again, here, same old offense. But, South Carolina made some adjustments. They came out in the second half. The North Sellers ran the ball a little more, hit Nick Harbor on a deep touchdown pass. I think I heard one of the announcers say, if you plan on jamming Nick Harbor at the line, if you miss, this is going to be the result every time because not many people are going to be able to run him down once against Bayou. And you can see he actually even had to slow down on that deep ball, and that guy was still 5 yards back. He never stood a chance. So if you try to jam that guy, you better get both your hands on him, or it's gonna be a house call every time.
Yeah, what a play to probably I'd say the fastest athlete in the college in the country on any of those teams, especially in the track and field side. But yeah, speaking on that Nick Harbor play, they said where it is they said Beamer's son called that play early on in the week in practice. He went up to Lenore and said, hey, throw the post, man. He's open. Ain't nobody really going to stop him, especially if, like you said, they jam him on the line. But, hey, I jumped back into the start of the game. I'm glad South Carolina football is back. Gives us something to tune into on the weekends and go to all the home games and support and show our support. We got our Gamecock fans, but no disrespect to the other team in the upstate. But, I think Lenore's came out. He came out just like he did to close out the season last year. In the bowl game and in that last game against Clemson. But I seen where that offense coordinator is getting a little conservative with him and letting him slide and get out of bounds and not having to be the Superman like he was last year. I think that's the best for him. When he's not having to be Superman and make those spectacular plays, I feel more confident because that means we're getting open and our receivers are doing their job on the outside. But yeah, like you said, he had a good game. I think he went for over 200. I think he had like a pass completion of like 65%. It was good to see Rasul Fajon out there after finally getting cleared. I think he had a few big runs, but I see Oscar Adaway taking most of the reps back there, which really is no surprise, especially after the season he had last year and going into the bowl game. But I'm glad to see a bunch of the wide receivers out there. Irmo's on Donovan Murph. He got a few catches. That was good to see him out there earlier. I was really happy of the defensive side. Actually, speaking of defense, I was happy I feel like they aren't too far off of the defense that we had last year. I know they was better and senior heavy. But yeah, I like the way we play. I know it's week one. People get week one winniness, but hey, you got to get the butterflies out somehow.
Yeah, college football is a little tough, man. Unlike any other sport, they don't have a preseason game or a scrimmage game before it. So really, that week one is your preseason game. So you really don't know what you're going to do when the lights come on. Like I said, everybody was concerned about the defense. We lost a lot of guys to the NFL on the defensive side of the ball, but that defense, a lot of new names, but a lot of the same results. They didn't allow a touchdown. Like I said, I know Virginia Tech's not a top 25 team, but I mean, honestly, man, their defense is pretty stout. I was really surprised about their defensive front. They really gave us trouble up front and was in the backfield most of the night. I think we're just kind of out-talenting them at skill positions right now. They're in a rebuilding situation up there in Virginia Tech, but, I thought their defense really played pretty good most of the night as well. Wrapping it up, Devin, if you got any more in this game, if not, we'll make our final, few final points, and then we'll get on out of here. We've done held y'all for about 55 minutes, so you got anything you want to say before we go?
I haven't searched up the score yet. I know it's going to start, and we probably a few quarters deep into it by now, but we do got a matchup tonight with the North Carolina Tar Heels and TCU. I mean, I don't really like the Tar Heels, but hey, local team getting the win over any team from Texas. And, you know, they have all that NIL money, but that's a different topic for a different day. We hope you guys had a good Labor Day. I'm Devin, he's Brian. We'll see you guys.